Alright guys, so here's the comparison review of the Second Hour Mandala Mk1 and the newer limited edition Burst. So since I did the unboxing review of this, if you haven't seen that, I'll leave a link to it in the top. They've actually released two other colours, the Burst version. They've now got a burnt orange and a green. However, those two aren't limited edition, so you can pick one of those up no matter what. They still have actually got some of the purple left as well, but they are only making 100 of them, so if you do want this purple one, you need to get in pretty quickly because I'm guessing there won't be that many left now. So as you can see, the dimensions are the same on both, so you're probably wondering what exactly are the differences. So most of them is when it comes to the dial, so we'll take a look at that and talk about it in a bit more detail. So the most obvious difference when you first look at them both side by side is probably that chapter ring. So on the Mk1 you've got that white chapter ring, but it's not just the colour difference that's different between the two. So I'll put this one down, get a zoom in on this and show you in a bit more detail. So this chapter ring is actually in two separate pieces. So that white section is sloped and then it levels off, and then the blue section around the outside that's actually got the numbers on, you can see, is flat. So this is different to the other one, which I'll show you now. And you can see there on this one, we've just got a single sloped chapter ring, so it's not got that stepped section at the top. And because of this, that also affects those indices at the 12, 4 and 8. You can see on this one, they are larger than the others, and they are sloping down from higher on that actual sloped chapter ring. And then in contrast, the Mk1, you can see we've actually got like a stepped section for those 12, 4 and 8 markers, so it's like a double layer. It's a really cool effect, and I do like it on this one, but I think the newer version is probably a little bit more refined. They've just tweaked it, as they have with the centre section as well. So on this Mk1, you can see we've just got it in the very centre of the dial, whereas I bring you the newer Burst version, it is the full dial that is that really nice pattern, which I think is what you want with this kind of watch. It is all about the dial with this. I also really like the two-tone effect, the way it fades to darker towards the edge on the newer version, instead of just being a solid colour. And when it comes to that Mandala branding down at the bottom, they've changed the font on that slightly as well as the logo up at the top. Whereas the way it's done on this Mk1, it does still look good, but I think it makes the dial look a bit smaller, the way it's done, with that centre section being so small and then like a outer section just outside that. There's quite a lot of almost rings going on, which draw your eye toward the centre, which is a nice effect, but it does make it feel a bit smaller overall. So another difference you might not have noticed is the hands. So on this one, the Mk1, they're completely flat, whereas on the Burst they're actually faceted. So hopefully this will come up on camera so you can see it properly. It's a little bit difficult to capture, but hopefully it will come across. You can notice it more on the end near the centre. You can see there's like a crease, and again it just helps it catch the light a bit better, play with the light really nicely. Again, it's just attention to detail, just little tweaks they've made between the two versions, and I do appreciate it. I think they've just taken what was already a really good looking watch and a really good looking dial and just elevated it to another level. It's just more refined, I think, as I've said previously, just a really clean look, and as I say, it focuses on the strengths of what the dial has to offer. So another change they have made that I'm not as keen on is this date wheel. So they've actually colour matched it apparently. So the previous version I got didn't have the date. I think they offered date and no date versions, but I went with the no date. You've probably noticed what the issue is I have with this. It's the fact that it's just too light. You just can't see it in a lot of lighting conditions. It would have been better if they'd gone with like a darker purple, or possibly even a black would have worked with this. So the burnt orange and the green also have colour matched accordingly, and based on the pictures I've seen, they seem to work a bit better. They're a darker colour, so they don't have this problem. So if that is an issue for you, then you probably want to go for one of those two over this one. Another nice little touch is when it comes to the crown on this. So I'm not sure how well this will come up on camera, but we've actually got a little purple section in there, just in the middle. Whereas the Mk1 didn't have that at all. It was just a solid crown. No coloured section or broken up section in the middle. So again, just a little attention to detail that just elevates it, I think. So now we've talked about all these little differences with the dial. and the indices especially, you're probably wondering, how does this affect the loom? Does it affect the loom at all? So let's take a closer look now and find out. So you can see we've got a bit there already, but let's charge them both up, give them a proper chance. And there we go. So as you can see, not really a great deal of difference. The only real difference comes when you look at those indices at the 12, 4 and 8. So obviously on the newer version, the Burst, they've just got those large singular indexes, whereas the Mark 1, that has that slightly different, slightly odd two-step kind of thing going on. So you've got the two separate layers, which looking from above almost look the same, but obviously because they are two separate ones, you just can't get as much loom in it as you can compared to a singular index. So obviously the loom on the Burst appears a little bit brighter on those at the very least. And when it comes to the loom, we've got BGW9 on both. And I'm not sure if this is just me, or if it's some kind of optical illusion because of the more loom on the 12, 4 and 8, but I think the one on the Burst might be slightly brighter. Let me know what you think though. Am I just seeing things, or is it ever so slightly brighter? Maybe they've got an extra layer or two on there compared to the Mark 1. Who knows? But either way, they're both good, so you're not going to be complaining if you'd got either. But as I say, they don't sell the Mark 1 anymore, they only sell the Mark 2, which I think is more closely resembled to this Burst version, obviously minus a couple of little tweaks there specific to the Burst. So in terms of the differences between the two, that's pretty much all of them. But the question is, how does it affect the way they look on wrist? Let's take a look now, starting with the Mark 1. So here's what it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. And as I say, I do still really like this, it does look good. I just like the way the light catches all the little polished details on it, on the bracelet and on the bezel as well. And then again, you've got the same thing with the hands, although it's not catching it as much as it does on the newer version, because those hands are more flat, they don't have the bevel. And you can probably also see as well that that dial does look quite small, given it being a 40mm. So now let's show you the Burst in comparison. And here it is. So straight away, I think this just looks like a far bigger watch than the other version, even though the dimensions are actually identical. Just, it has far more dial presence, I think. And every little tweak they've made, I think, has been going toward that. So you've got more of that pattern section, it's covering the whole dial, it's not just in the centre anymore. We've not got that two-step chapter ring, it's just a single chapter ring, so again, that's not eating into the dial anymore. And then, as I say, the change to those indices at the 12, 4 and 8, it just draws your eye into the centre without it making it feel smaller. The only real issue I have is just that date. I just wish they'd change the font colour to something darker, but that is literally the only issue I have. Everything else I absolutely love. I think it's a really good looking watch, really well made, and it's pretty different as well, pretty unique. Second Hour have their own unique style, and those indices being at the 12, 4 and 8 is part of it. But what do you think? That's it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.